Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to applaud Senator Hertzberg. I think this is a win-win situation. 27 oil platforms that are decades old, reaching the end of their productive life. Not one operator has applied for a permit under the California Marine Resources Act with these financial incentives that require 2503, AB 2503 requires the owner or an operator of an oil structure upon receipt or condition approval for partial removal to transmit a portion of the total savings, 55% by January 2017, 65% between 17 and January of 2023. Now, by my calculations, if it's roughly $200 million to completely dismantle and ship the metals out of state, we're looking at potentially $2 to $3 billion to go into a nature conservancy, which is something that I certainly think is very admirable. What about assuming that this does get passed, and I think, and I won't speak for Senator Jackson, but I certainly would understand her concerns that there are wells that you see from probably the coastline that are a problem. She's probably concerned about the integrity of the wells, that they don't leak oil, which I think is very valid concerns. But I like the fact that there's an incentive for the oil companies to participate in getting rid of the visual blight, if you want to call it that, for these platforms that serve no useful purpose anymore. And it's really cost and process that is inhibiting them from removing them. So I think that anyone sitting here would agree that removing these aesthetically would be a good move if they're no longer productive. So if this does pass and the oil companies do participate, is there assurances to them that we won't come back at a later date and say, after they've contributed all this money to this trust fund, that we now want you to go underneath the water now and we want you to remove these remaining structures? Is there any guarantees for them that that won't happen?
I believe that there would be a permit approval that would actually that would foreclose that possibility. And one thing I would just say, they remain in perpetuity responsible to ensure that there's no leak at the bottom. They have to plug the hole at the bottom, and they are responsible forever that there be no leak, regardless of whether you do rigs to reefs or you take the whole thing out.
Yeah, there's a liability exemption, but the state would end up probably being owner of those reefs at the end, correct?
The state would own the structure.
Yeah. So that would be the disincentive to overturn that, if that was your question.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that if the oil companies are party to an agreement, that there's no double dipping allowed in the event that they participate. And also, when we built the Diamond Valley Lake, the largest reservoir in Southern California, we found many paleontological artifacts, and we had large rocks that we had nowhere to put them. And so what did we do with them? We took them out to the ocean, and we created rock reefs, and which has created fish habitat. So I agree, and I think Senator Wazo made the point that we've actually sunk ships throughout the world to create these artificial reefs that I think have enhanced fisheries. And certainly, it even says in the staff report that it's providing a rich habitat for valuable rock fish. And I did hear the opposition say that we'd be taking fish away from, other rock substrates, but doesn't mean that we're decimating those fish. It's just we're providing alternatives for the fish habitat that is. We have fish life barnacles that have accumulated for many, many years on these reefs that are creating enhancements to habitat in the oceans. And so I see this as a win-win situation with significant incentives for the oil companies to participate, going into a fund that will be environmentally utilized. I see the greenhouse gas arguments here that you're going to be transporting tons of metals on ships to China for smelting that you will minimize. And so I see this as good government. I applaud you, and I would like to move the item.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready for a close. Let's hear that inspired close.
I will. Madam Chair, you know, I've been fortunate enough in the last dozen years as I was out of government service to travel the world, focusing mostly on the environmental space. In that experience, I've had the opportunity to see a lot of these rigs of reef. I didn't know anything about it. I've seen it all over the planet, talked to a lot of experts. And when this idea came to me, I thought it was a great idea. Only knowing that, as we see here today, that this basically unnerves the kinds of scabs that often motivate the passions of the Middle East. It is two groups that don't trust each other. It is an underlying promise that said, we're going to let you put oil companies, but you put rigs in these things, but you got to take them away. Then you got the rat finks coming back and saying, we want to cut a different deal, and you're coming back again and saying it's not happening. That's the underlying political architecture of this. But I say to you, members of this committee, let's step back for a second. I think the measure that Speaker Perez proposed and that passed both houses and signed by the governor was a thoughtful approach, because there is a great deal of science. There's always an argument. There's the few people that say climate change isn't happening. They're always the case, but overwhelmingly the science exists with respect to turning these rigs into reefs. Two, and most importantly, it is a potload of money for environmental endeavors. The other couple points I want to raise is that this measure says, and repeats what was said before, it was negotiated before, there has to be a net environmental benefit. A net environmental benefit. So the arguments of the opposition, if taken, are going to be weighed by the agencies to make that determination as to whether there's a net environmental benefit. And if there is not, then the permission will not be granted. So what do we have? We've got an analysis that says that it is literally effectively impossible to qualify for the maximum savings. Did the delay cause because the oil companies had a grand conspiracy to stop this stuff from happening, that they're going to come back and renegotiate? Or, as suggested, was the process so difficult that no one would apply? Don't know the reasons. But where are we today? Where we are today is we have the same level. In fact, we've increased the level of analysis. We've included the CARB in the analysis in terms of being part of this. We've included GHGs for however done, because GHGs are things that are critically important to determining environmental quality in terms of the globalization and the like. And the reason the dates are open is to negotiate with the administration. As Mr. Broad said in his statement, and it is, I will reflect that, the purpose of this is not to move this measure just to have a bill. The purpose of this is to make the program work. It doesn't work. We are where we are. We have huge economic benefits as a result of it. There's huge environmental protections. None of those standards have changed. Let's give it a shot. Let's negotiate with the governor as we're trying to engage in this process. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
A motion by members?
I made a motion.
Motion on the floor by Senator Stone.
Sure.
Question, Senator Allen?
Question for you, maybe for Senator Hertzberg, but on this issue of the net environmental benefit, I mean, is that not an adequate protection? I mean, the Ocean Protection Council.
They would have to weigh the overall environmental benefit, looking at disturbance of the underground. They've done that in a recent decision relating to shell mounds and whether to remove them or not remove them. So it would have to be weighed on the pluses and minuses, all being exposed, I assume, through the CEQA process. There's nothing in this that takes out CEQA, and instead make sure that the State Lands Commission, who has had jurisdiction and experience in CEQA, would review it.
So if we're concerned about this weighing test, it seems like there's a mechanism here for experts in ocean ecology
There's public hearings.
and public hearings, but then ultimately experts in ocean ecology.
It'll be balanced, and one of the Ms. Kropp's arguments was we don't want to overly emphasize global GHG and transportation versus local marine impacts, but that's because local people are concerned, and Senator Hertzberg's right. It came back to the beginning. A deal was a deal. When they put in these structures, that when they're decommissioned, they would all be removed. So now we fast forward. Is this a different solution or alternative? Time will tell.
All right, let me ask the chair as well. What's the time frame on,
Oh, CEQA is separate from the OPC's net environmental benefit calculation, my staff says. So the OPC would be Ocean Protection Council. After the EIR is done, we'll be weighing that.
is this bill, so this bill is, we're up against the deadline today with this bill?
Yep.
So we have to make a decision by lunch on this.
Well, there is a motion on the
fish
floor.
lunch.
I'm getting ready to call the roll, and you can vote yes, no, or hold off, your choice. Yes.
A quick comment. I supported the original Perez bill. As I understand this, and it's a little hard to grasp, I do appreciate the balancing. This bill includes a greater balancing that does include other environmental impacts.
That's correct.
Just ocean impacts, but it doesn't negate the ocean impact still being part of that balancing. So if anything, I'm going to be supportive. I see this as expanding in today's global warming, drought-induced climate change. We should be looking at the broader environmental impact of full extraction versus partial extraction. I also favor getting some of that oil company money into use for environmental work in California sooner rather than later. So I certainly appreciate the concerns of the ocean protection community. I share those concerns, but I have confidence that they're not going to be negated through the passage of this, so I'll be supporting it today. Thank you.
So much.
So let's see how we go. The motion would be due pass to appropriations.
Senators Pavley?
Not voting at this time.
Stone? Stone, aye. Allen? Hertzberg?
Aye.
Hertzberg, aye. Hueso? Hueso, aye. Jackson? Monning? Monning, aye. Vidak? Wolk?
You have 4 votes. You need 1 more vote. We'll put it on call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you. I have one other bill here.
It's on one hand and then the other hand. I think I'm going to let the other people, since you're on the committee, Senator
I got to go to
Hertzberg,
another committee.
Yeah.
Back. Thank you.
come on back. So Senator De Leon, did Senator Galgiani let you come first? He owes you, Senator Galgiani. And your first bill was on the consent calendar, and so while we have people here and you're getting ready for Senate Bill 317, let's open the call. I'll ask for a motion on the consent calendar, and that was file item 8, De Leon, and file item 11, a committee bill. It's been moved.
Senators Pavley?
Aye, consent calendar, people.
Pavley, aye. Stone? Stone, aye. Allen? Allen, aye. Hertzberg? Hertzberg, aye. Hueso? Hueso, aye. Jackson? Monning? Monning, aye. Vidak? Wolk?
It has 6 votes, but we'll leave that open. Consent calendar, though, is approved. Hey, Senator De Leon, Senate Bill 317, Safe Neighborhood Parks Act, and we have several people who have come up from the LA area for this.
Yes, thank you so very much, Madam Chair, as well as colleagues. I am honored to present SB 317, which enacts into law the Safe Neighborhoods, Parks, Rivers, and Coastal Protection Act of 2016, otherwise referred to as the Parks Bond. The bond is a $2.4 billion measure that would appear on the November 2016 ballot if it, in fact, becomes law. If enacted, SB 317 would be the first parks bond passed by this legislature in over 15 years. Investing in community parks and infrastructure is vital to communities throughout the state of California. It is particularly important in areas where children have no green space and have very few recreational opportunities. The last time the legislature provided funding to help communities in parks, in poor park areas, there were at least 4 times as many applicants, requests, than they were dollars. Over time, the need has only become greater, especially in low-income neighborhoods throughout the state of California. 317 is focused on underserved communities, but also provides funds for all areas, from San Diego to Crescent City. It reflects the fact that every region of our state has different needs, but all regions need parks and all regions need open space. This is a measure that is supported by Trust for Public Lands, the Nature Conservancy, as well as the Los Angeles Neighborhood Land Trust, among many others. I believe strongly that this is a measure that is a bipartisan measure because all individuals, Republicans as well as Democrats, and those who decline the state, all enjoy access to Mother Nature in green parks, whether they be urban, rural, coast, or suburban. With that, Madam Chair, as well as colleagues, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Point of clarification, Senator De Leon, there's some suggested amendments back on pages, I don't know, 5 and 6.
Oh, yes, the co-authors, yes, we'll go
But
ahead,
there's
Madam
other
Chair.
ones, technical, cross-referencing,
Co-authors.
nothing
Absolutely, absolutely.
substantive. All righty, and your primary speaker, we have 3 at about 2 minutes each, I've heard. Who's first? Senator De Leon? You have,
Well, Madam Chair, it is your purview. You
oh,
are the
yeah,
chair of
right.
this committee.
Oh, go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land. We're very supportive as a national conservation organization of all the provisions in this park bond, particularly investments in watershed and climate resilience in the coast, but I'm specifically here to focus my testimony on an issue that we know very well, and that's investments to local parks and park poor communities. We know firsthand from our community engagement activities to the actual design and completion of park projects the transformational impacts these parks have, particularly to families and children. But California, some areas of California remain severely park poor. For example, Senator De Leon's first bill, AB 31, created a $400 million program from funding provided by Prop 84, and this program was based on household income and park acreage per 1,000 residents. It really focused on putting parks not only in park poor areas, but in economically disadvantaged areas. And as Senator De Leon mentioned a minute ago, the state received over $3 billion worth of applications for a $400 million program. So the scope of opportunity here in California is still evident. The data supports this as well. The National Recreation and Parks Association recommends 10 acres of park space per 10,000 residents. There are areas in south central Los Angeles where we have a half an acre of park space per 1,000 residents. That's 95% below that recommendation. We clearly have a long way to go. And I'd also like to mention greening our urban dense areas may be one of the most urgent investments we can make, not only to recreation and quality of life, but to the effects our communities are going to have and are having now from climate change. By all scientific accounts, including reports from Lawrence Berkeley Labs and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we are going to experience longer and more intense heat waves, and they're coming, and our biggest immediate climate-related threat to human health. Local parks and other green infrastructure mitigate the heat island effect by lowering temperature of our cities, considering poor communities are most likely not to have air conditioning or green infrastructure of any kind. Building parks in park-poor neighborhoods could save lives. We also have the technology now.
Sum up, we have 2
Yeah, I got one more
witnesses.
paragraph. To build climate, sentence, okay. Listen, I have personally experienced and visited a number of AB 31 parks in California, in Watts and Maywood and Richmond, and these parks change lives for the better, and it's incredibly important to do this, and I appreciate Senator De Leon's focus on this, and I urge your aye vote.
Thank you very much. This is the Natural Resources Committee, and we're all park fans, so yes, thank you very much for your testimony. Next up.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Stephanie Stevens, and I'm the Executive Director for the California Park and Recreation Society. We're a 4,000-member trade organization representing local park professionals statewide from Crescent City to El Centro. First, I'd like to thank the Pro Tem and you all for your leadership on park resources and conservation issues. You've all been true champions for us. The California Park and Recreation Society appreciates the working relationship we have with the Pro Tem going back to 2013 when he consented to author our sponsored park bond proposal in SB 783. Echoing the comments of the Pro Tem, it has been over 15 years since a true park bond. Since that time, because of recessionary trends, local park infrastructure has fallen on some difficult times. As the voice for local park service providers throughout the state, CPRS believes that per capita represents a fair and equitable mechanism to distribute funds. SB 317 acknowledges this. As the committee analysis highlights, though, many entities and organizations are seeking an increased allocation of per capita grant funds. Both Proposition 12 and 40 contained greater than $500 million in per capita discretionary dollars for local entities to address local priorities. CPRS looks forward to working with this author and body to, at a minimum, replicate those efforts. Additionally, based on survey results among our member agencies, CPRS has learned that the rehabilitation, restoration, and repair of existing local park infrastructure is a high priority. While the Pro Tempor's AB 31 statewide park program was hugely successful and funded countless CPRS member projects, nearly 84% of the funding awarded went to new park development. Again, based on survey results, new park development does not resonate quite as loudly within the local park community, and we hope to work with this author and body to better reconcile the Pro Tem's priority for new parks and taking care of what we already have. In closing, CPRS is very encouraged by the framework of this bill and the proposed investments in underserved communities, local and regional parks. And again, thank the Pro Tem, our 2014 Legislator of the Year, for his leadership on this issue. No. Oh, no, huh?
Thank you. Good morning. Pablo Garza with the Nature Conservancy, and we're also pleased to be here in support of SB 317. And I want to thank the Pro Tem for his leadership on providing access to the outdoors for all Californians, whether it be via a neighborhood or local park or a state park in a more remote location of the state. And I'll just start by saying, one of the many great things about California is our rich natural heritage and diversity of natural landscapes. And it's what brought one of the many reasons a lot of people have come to the state over the centuries. And it starts, whether it's the deserts in Southern California, our coastline, our Central Valley wetlands, our Sierra Mountains, or our North Coast redwoods. And I probably skipped over a number of wonderful places in that quick flyover, but it's just an incredibly diverse state in that respect. And that's why we like SB 317, because it will provide resources to protect and enhance those natural resources. And we see them as crucial to public health and really our long-term economic prosperity. It also would like to note one chapter in the bond has funding for iconic places such as the Tahoe Lake, or Lake Tahoe, also funding for protecting and enhancing rivers around the state. We hope that the legislature will consider allocating funding specifically for the Sierra Nevada Conservancy as we go forward through this process. Also importantly, it has substantial funding for climate adaptation, and I think we all know the news that climate change is happening. We're starting to see the impacts are real. This 317 will provide funding to to do regional green prints, which will help identify our natural resources, to plan our growth in a more rational way where we'll have fewer vehicle miles traveled, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and also can use our natural infrastructure as a buffer against the impacts of climate change, whether it be flood or sea level rise. So for all those reasons, we urge your support. We think it's a modest investment considering what's at stake, and look forward to working with you in the legislature as we move along.
Right. Thank you very much. Let's hear from other people who wish to just add on with their name and affiliation and support of this measure. And if you would line up, Senator Allen, could we borrow your microphone as well, just for a moment? Sorry. Name, affiliation, position of support.
Sorry. Morning, Chair and members. Teresa Cook on behalf of the State Parks Foundation and strong support. Want to thank the Pro Tem, his staff, and the committee for all their work.
Thanks.
Madam Chair and members, Doug Houston with State Park Partners Coalition in strong support.
Thank you, Doug.
Cynthia Vitale on behalf of the Peninsula Open Space Trust, Marin Agricultural Land Trust, and Save the Redwoods League in support.
Thank you.
Olivia Regalia for Sierra Club California in strong support.
Haley Stewart with Defenders of Wildlife in support.
Andrew Grinberg, Clean Water Action in support.
Vern Gehring on behalf of the California Native Plant Society and the California Urban Streams Partnership in support.
Karen Lang on behalf of the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and the Kern County Board of Supervisors in support. Thank you.
That's a combo.
Madam Chair, members, Roxanne Miller representing the Mayor, City Council of San Jose. We join with the California Parks Organization. We appreciate the author's efforts and will work together on amendments. Thank you.
Mark Fenstermaker on behalf of the Sonoma Land Trust and the Bolsa Chica Land Trust in support.
Ditto on behalf of California League Conservation Voters in support.
Amy Turner, West Marin Environmental Action Committee in strong support.
Hi, good morning. Jonathan Felix Robles on behalf of the MRCA, Montreal Recreation Conservation Authority. We're in support.
Christopher Castrillo on behalf of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti in support.
Tasha Newman on behalf of the Big Sur Land Trust and the Santa Clara Open Space Authority in support.
Paul Mason with the Pacific Forest Trust also in support.
Tamar Burke on behalf of the Environmental Defense Fund in support.
Katrina Robinson on behalf of CalTrout in support.
Chuck Mills on behalf of California Relief and the California Urban Forest Council in strong support.
Juan Altamirano on behalf of Audubon, California in strong support.
Kim Boyd on behalf of the California Tahoe Alliance and the Tahoe Resource Conservation District in support.
Russell Nowak on behalf of Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District in support.
Charles Watson on behalf of the California Local Conservation Corps in support. Thank you.
Argelia Leon on behalf of the Alley River Corporation in support. Thank you.
Reed Addis on behalf of the Land Trust of Santa Cruz County and the LA Neighborhood Land Trust in support.
Thank you, Reed. Anyone else in support of this measure? Any opposition to motherhood and apple pie? there's some of them are standing up. I don't know why. Okay. Questions by committee members or motions? I just had a question, Senator DeLone. Obviously, this is a good framework. If people wanted to get involved, do you see setting up I don't know, a task force or a forum, if you will, for changes? Not sure if this will pass this year, if it's if your plans are a 2-year bill. Obviously, it would be on the 2016 ballot at your discretion. So what are your plans?
Well, I don't know if we're going to so much formalize the process. I mean, folks, I think, know how to get a hold of us if they want suggestions.
So through your office, if people have suggestions of...
Exactly. Like you said, Madam Chair, we've established, I think, a very good framework, a foundation from which to build from. We have to be cognizant also, too, that, the very well-deserved interests across the board, whether it's watersheds, whether it's urban parks, whether it's our current state park system right now, and the backload, if you will, with regards to maintenance issues. There's a whole variety of really good, well-meaning and intentioned projects. We got to keep in mind too what the overall number will look like, what's going to resonate with the voters specifically, and we want to be careful it doesn't end up becoming a Christmas tree, if you will, that it satisfies everyone, and at the end of the day, the end result is not satisfactory to us when the voters themselves will have the choice, the question before them, whether they support it or not. Quite interestingly, is in the last bond measures, whether it had been park bonds or a resource bond, which was Prop 84, so a fraction of 84 from Chapter 9 was dedicated to park creation acquisition, is that whites, Latinos, African Americans, Asian Americans, Democrats, as well as Republicans really came on board with the idea of maintaining their current parks and the opportunities of acquiring new space for new park creation. Obviously, the voters will make a very intelligent decision if we're able to get this to move forward and convince the governor this is the right thing to do by 2016. But again, I just want to keep mindful of that we got to make sure that our number is one that resonates with voters.
Right. I get that. Senator Money?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move the bill and just thank the author. I think the structure, when voters go to the polls, they necessarily look to see where their interest is satisfied. In the way this is structured, and we heard from the testimony and support, it represents all geographic sections of the state of California, but maintains enough of a focus that some projects can get done. So I'm, of course, representing coastal areas, glad to see support for coastal ocean protection and parks programs that do serve all Californians. So with that, I want to thank the author and move the bill. Thank you.
Been moved the bill. Comments by other members. Senator Allen?
To say that I'm in very strong support. I grew up hiking in the Santa Monica Mountains as a kid, and I know that for so many young people from every age in urban areas, especially as we grow, we become more congested. It's so important that there be spaces for young people to go nearby their homes to thrive and enjoy nature. We've got these extraordinary natural resources that are very close to our cities. It's one thing that makes the urban experience of California a little different than in a lot of places, and yet it's a race against time. It's a race against time with development, with degradation, and there's just so many opportunities to fund these programs, buy new land, protect land that already exists. And do what we need to do to get more of our families and kids and residents and citizens up into the wilderness to enjoy and escape from the madness of city life. So I'm very supportive of this and excited to work with the author on getting it passed.
Thank you, Senator Allen. I couldn't put it better than the way you just articulated. Thank you very much.
Senator Hueso?
Thank you, and I also want to commend the author for bringing this important. This is a monumental bill. This is a monumental bill. And one of the things that a lot of people look at in communities when they want to move there is the quality of life. They look at the schools, they look at the parks. And one of the challenges that we have with underserved neighborhoods is that they were planned and built, in many cases in the state of California in the late 1800s. And I live in one of those communities. And our only park in the community is actually built on state land. It's still currently owned as state land. It's called Chicano Park. And that was a park that was allowed to be built by the state of California. We haven't cracked the code in this state how to finance
with much controversy. It
was controversial. It was taken over. In fact, looking up that webpage, my father was listed as one of the people that were involved in the takeover of that park. I'm very proud of that. That's kind of the inheritance that he left me, and our community, that park that was taken over by people in the community. But we haven't really found a way to crack the code on how to build parks in those underserved areas. It's easy for new communities where you add the cost of the amenities into the developer impact fees, and that's how we develop California communities. But for those communities, they've been left behind. So this bill is an equalizer. It will bring parks to the underserved communities as well as the well communities as well. Everyone will benefit from parks because there are no borders around parks. People can visit all parks in the state, but it's very important that our kids in underserved areas have a park within walking distance, and where they can learn to play sports, go and find a place, open space with some greenery. So thank you very much for this bill. I'm supporting it, and I think the voters will approve it overwhelmingly. It's a great bill.
Thank you.
Senator Wilk, and then we'll...
Yes, I want to thank the author for bringing this forward. I think it's an important effort, and we've been waiting for another parks bond for a while, and I hope
We're
this is the
witnessing
timing.
a bromance happening right now between Senator Allen and Way. So parks bring people together,
From San Diego.
Actually, that's
to
true.
Santa Monica.
You see what you just did with your bill?
I didn't know there was a problem. I mean, whatever. Okay. I just wanted to, I was listening to your comments, Ben, and the parks in most of my district have been built largely through new development. I mean, talking the last couple decades. But what has happened in established communities is that there's less and less money available for rehabilitation of these parks, and it's time for them to be rehabilitated, long past time, and less and less money for maintenance, which is not an issue, obviously, for a bond. But I think in terms of reestablishing or renovating or rehabilitating parks, I think it's important to do that because it's a similar kind of issue. It may not be an underserved area, but it may well be an area that can no longer afford to rehabilitate the parks that are there. I would ask you for, in the area where you assign, as with most park bonds, a per capita distribution throughout the state, which I think is important, that there be maximum flexibility on what the local governments, how the local governments can handle that. They may want to rebuild some parks, they may want to build new ones, but I think there ought to be some kind of flexibility written into that sort of reflects the varying communities.
The realities of the various communities up and down
Yes.
the per capita basis. I think you'll be very happy, Senator Walt, to the language allows for rehabilitation, acquisition, the creation of parks. It's reflective of what the realities are. It could be different in Riverside, near Davis, Yolo County, San Diego County, what the needs are. So I think you'll be very, very pleased with the language because I think it's very reflective of the points that you're articulating.